So we've shared with you what research came out of Gottman's research as to the disasters of marriage. Now let's have some fun and really look at what the masters do. Now we'll start talking about what all of you are doing, I'm sure. And what we want to share with you, because of time, we're just going to share with you 3 or 4 of the 7 principles that John Gottman found. He found that couples, there were 7 key things that they did. We're going to share with you at least 3 or 4. Here's the first one. So on your worksheet there, on the right-hand side, if you want to keep a record, number 1, enhance your love maps. Enhance your love maps. What on earth does John Gottman mean by that? You can put in brackets, get to know each other incredibly well. Get to know each other incredibly well. John Gottman found that couples who are masters of marriage knew each other incredibly well. And he said they constantly were checking with each other and keeping up to date with each other on all aspects of their life, and were checking in all the time on what was going on in their life, and they knew each other incredibly well. Now, sometimes we think, I know my partner very well, I know her favourite colour, that's blue. I know her favourite flower, that's self-raising flower. Say that gently, men. Yeah. But we need to know much more than that. And what John Gottman found is that couples were always checking each other. I think we've got a few words on this one. Emotionally intelligent couples are intimately familiar with each other's world. They have a richly detailed love map, that part of the brain where you store all the relevant information about your partner's life. They remember the major events in each other's history, and they keep updating their information as the facts and feelings of their spouse's world change. They know each other's goals in life, each other's worries, each other's hopes. And the little questionnaire sheet we're going to give you later has a whole series of questions that you can ask each other. It's circulating now. Tuck it under your chair. You'll be able to do it when you go home. But this is really valuable. From knowledge springs not only love, but the fortitude to weather marital storms. Couples who have detailed love maps of each other's world are far better prepared to cope with stressful events and conflict. And so what John Gottman found was that couples who knew each other really well and had this sort of deep sense of awareness and knowledge about each other, it meant that when conflict came, they weren't sort of tossed so much by that because they just knew each other so well. And so what a really neat thing you can do is, as you're driving along together, ask each other some questions. Between the ages of 10 and 15, who played the most important role in your life for positive good? What was the scariest room in your house when you were a child? If you just won $5,000, who would you give it to, apart from me? If you had $10,000 to give it to a charity, which charity would you give it to? My wife and I were driving some time back, I think from Sydney to Brisbane, it's about 10 hours drive, and I like listening to music. She was having a bit of a sleep. Then she woke up and I was listening to the music, and she reached over and switched the music off, and I was about to make a little speech about that, and she said, no, hang on. She said, when you were about 16, do you remember who it was that influenced you to think about study after school? And away we went for miles just asking each other questions. And because our kids are gone, after tea every evening we go for a walk, and we've got to get back into the habit a bit more, but some time back I said to her, I think she said, whose turn is it to ask questions? And we ask each other a question. And I said, I think it's mine. And I said to her, if you were to die tonight, who would you like me to ask to take your funeral service? She said, oh. And she nearly tripped over the footpath. And it was really funny. She said, I've never thought of that. And I said, that's why I asked you. And I was very proud of myself for asking this very good question. And about 2 days later, she came back and said, I've been thinking about that question a bit more. I think I've changed my mind. She was sort of thinking about it. Anyway, the next night we walked along and I said, I think it's your turn to ask a question. And she said, if you were to die tonight, I said, oh, get out, ask your own questions. You know? But we have fun because we want to get to know each other really well. So it's one of the neat things you can do is learn to get to know each other incredibly well. Number 2, nurture your fondness and admiration. Chris, we know from marriage research, one of the biggest risks for marriage is that they take it for granted. Remember hearing about this guy, I think we shared it with our young people last night. His wife asked him, "Honey, do you still love me?" And he paused and he said, 25 years ago, I stood in front of your family and my family and God and told you I love you. If I change my mind, I'll let you know. He's a dead man. Guys, the research is clear that smart marriages nurture their fondness and admiration. Ellen White, bless her, wrote a letter to her son, and I'm going to use kind of my words to summarise it. But she said to her son, she said, "You've worked very hard to win the heart of this girl that you're marrying. Don't stop now. Keep going with what you did." Sharp lady. And what you and I do is we so often assume each other's love. We make an assumption that our partner's always going to be there. That's the greatest risk that we can. It's just not a good risk. In fact, if you write assume on the board and put 2 strokes to it, you make an ass out of you and me. Just a bit of fun, right? We can't afford to assume each other's love. And we need to nurture our fondness and admiration. Let's see what John says. Fondness and admiration are 2 of the most critical elements in a rewarding and long-lasting romance. Although happily married couples may feel driven to distraction at times by their partner's personality flaws, they still feel that the person they married is worthy of honour and respect. Now, I want you to notice this next sentence. When this sense is completely missing from a marriage, the relationship cannot be revived. Honour and respect. Now, if you'd like to do some more work on that, Emerson Eggerichs put out a book called Love and Respect. It's interesting. Husbands, what was the command of Paul? Husbands, love your wives. Chris, Ephesians 5. Husbands, love your wives. Did Paul then say, wives, love your husbands? No. Why? Because you women know how to love. But what did he say? Wives, respect your husbands. And Emerson Eggerichs suggests there's quite a difference between expressing love and respect. And he said, I often ask men, does your wife love you? Yes. Does she respect you? No. It's interesting. Husbands, love your wives. Men, why did Paul say that? It's not that you and I can't love. I think we just forget. We just get a bit mindless. We just forget to let our partners know we love them. And men, this is where we need to get a bit creative and think up ways of letting our partners know that we love them. And we can do that in all sorts of nifty ways. Often we resort to flowers. They're good. Not cheap, are they? You notice that, man? You buy a bunch of flowers, $15, you get a few flowers. And the thing is, here's the keep in mind, man. When you take a bunch of flowers to your wife, she goes, oh, isn't that cute? But you've given all your flowers in one go. Just try one flower at a time. It saves you a fortune and you get the same response. Honey, I bought you a flower. Oh. You keep the other 6 in a vase for me. Honey, I bought you another one. If you want to give a bunch, you go ahead, but you're crazy. And little words, letters are nice. Some time back I thought I'd let Carol know I love her. I thought I can do this. But cards, they're like flowers. It's a commercial thing, you know. You buy this card and it's got some words on it that, you know, oh, it's all right, but... And then you've got to add words anyway. Don't you hate those Christmas cards? Dear Traff, happy Christmas. I mean, serious. You know, you want a bit more kind of... Dear honey, I like, sign my name, and there's all the words. No. So just get some cardboard, guys, cheap. Well, white cardboard and write your own, all right? Now, I did that, see, because I'm cheap. So some white card, cut it up, guillotine at work, cut up, and wrote some note. Now, I'm not going to tell you what I wrote, but I wrote some stuff for Carol. I put one in the freezer, one in the washing machine, one in the drawer where she keeps things. Knife and fork drawer, I just put around the house. Came time for the washing on Sunday. So, she went to get some frozen peas, 2 frozen peas out of the freezer. It's still in the drawer. It's still in the freezer. You can do that, blokes. It's not rocket science, okay? Just got to remember to do it, because we just assume we just assume. And nurturing your fondness and admiration is incredibly significant, incredibly powerful. We need to find nifty ways of letting our partner know that we love them. Ladies, you do that very well, but don't just take it for granted. Remember, respect and affirmation, 2 things that you can do. Find ways to let your partner know you respect him. And affirm him whenever you can. Find ways to let him know that you treasure what he does, even if he does it a bit messy. Let him know, honey, it's brilliant, okay? Because we thrive on that stuff. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, be lovable. Wives, see that you respect your husbands. Husbands, be respectable. All right? Principle of reciprocity. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, be easy to be loved. Wives, respect your husbands. Husbands, be easily respectable. Okay. Having a fundamental positive view of your spouse and your marriage is a powerful buffer when bad times hit. Couples who have this reserve of good feelings will not have cataclysmic thoughts about separation and divorce each time they have an argument. And so when you and I, that we've got this deep sense of trust, we're emotionally available, we're responding sensitively, we're getting to know each other incredibly well, we're avoiding criticism and contempt, we have an argument, it's okay. Now, the research is telling us clearly that if we're not having an argument in marriage, we may not be doing marriage very successfully. Because you often think of really neat marriages, we haven't fought for 32 years. Well, what do you talk about? Are you breathing? Are you guys alive? You can't put 2 people from separate backgrounds and have something to have conflict over. It's normal. It's normal. The way you do it is the key. Right? The way we look after each other while we're in conflict is the key. We can have a difference, but the way we care for each other while we're dealing with the difference is the key. Right? We're to take care of each other. A lot of honour and respect. Fondness and admiration can be fragile unless you remain aware of how critical they are to the friendship that is at the heart of a good marriage. By simply reminding yourself of your spouse's positive qualities, even as you grapple with each other's flaws, you can prevent a happy marriage from deteriorating. The simple reason for this is that fondness and admiration are antidotes for contempt. Which was the worst of the 4 horsemen? Contempt. So there's the antidote. Right? If you maintain a sense of respect for your spouse, you're less likely to act disgusted with him or her when you disagree. Cool? Chris, any comments that you want to add to that? All good? All right. If your fondness and admiration are being chipped away, the route to bringing them back always begins with realising how valuable they are. They are crucial to a long-term happiness of a relationship because they can prevent contempt, one of the marriage-killing horsemen, from becoming an overwhelming presence in your life. So nurture your fondness and admiration. Think about ways in which you can let each other know you are number one. Men, when you're standing around with your mates and your wife comes towards you, what do? What do you say? You say to your mates, brace yourself, boys. Here comes the dragon. I can feel the heat. Oh, hello, here we go. Here comes my wife. The second mortgage is on her way. No. Man, have you met the princess? Have you met my number one? See, we can do this stuff, right? We publicly declare our love for our wife is pretty huge. Okay. Number 3. Here's a really important principle. Chris, John Gottman found this was very vital. You and I were chatting about it just a while ago. You reminded me of the boat story. Do you remember the story? Vaguely. What does he mean by this? This is really significant, so I want you to jot it down. Turn towards each other instead of away. John Gottman, remember I shared with you, John Gottman used to watch these couples in the unit and he'd watch how they'd react to each other. And he came up with a description: turn towards, turn against, and turn away. Turn towards, turn against, and turn away. And one day he watched this couple, and this lady went over to the window. See the window here? And she went up to the window and she looked out and she said, "Oh, look, there goes that boat that went past yesterday. There goes that boat that went past yesterday." And John Gottman said, "Now I'm going to watch the man very carefully because he's either going to make or break his marriage." I thought, You kidding me? He said, because what a lot of husbands do, and I'm going to borrow this, I'm going to come down here if that's okay. And he said the husband was sitting in his chair in this unit, and he watched what this husband did. And this particular husband was reading the newspaper. And his wife said, oh, there goes that boat that went past yesterday. And the husband just kept sitting there reading the paper. Didn't move, didn't make a comment. It was as if she said, she may as well said it to fresh air. And John Gottman talks about that's turning away. When we turn away from our partner's bids for attention, we kind of just don't respond. It's when we turn away. An illustration of turning against is this. If the wife said, oh, look, there's that boat that went past yesterday, the guy would turn and sort of a sneer in his voice, well, what would you know about boats? Ooh. Well, what would you know about boats? And he said, that's what husbands would do. It's turning against. He said, smart marriage, masters of marriage, turn towards the bid. And he said they hop up out of their chair and they go over to the window and stand beside and say, yes, it is. I think, no, hang on, no, the mast is, no. Yeah, look, you might be right. You might be right. Men, when you and I are shopping, because we do the shopping, and isn't it neat that most of the shopping trolleys now have got the squawky wheel fixed up? Remember those trolleys, the wheel would go crooked, rotten things? Pretty well now, you and I are doing the shopping, right? And we're standing there with our trolley, and our wife says, honey, have we got any bleach? Smart, right? Don't just stand there going, all right? That's turning away, right? Turn towards, say, honey, I'm not sure. Let me go and get some just in case. When you get home, you've got 15 bottles of bleach, but it doesn't matter. You got a marriage, right? You got a marriage. Cool, okay? Right? Turn towards. Now, what John Comber was, he said, we are constantly making bids for each other's attention. And Chris, as you said, they happen in all the small ways, eh?
I think one of the, in the story, he told a story of a couple as well that turned towards where the guy, all he did was just to say, that was all.
Yeah, but he responded.
So she'd been up there, he didn't get up and go to the window, all he did was,
Yeah.
And
but he connected.
And that was connecting. That was that was turning towards rather than the other two.
So it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be huge, but John Gottman found this was core, really core to happy marriages, long-term marriages. They constantly, you see, it talks about making the bid. Now, you know an auction, when you go to an auction, you hold up your sign or you raise your hand or you nod to the auctioneer that you are invested in this auction, you are interested, you in fact are upping the ante, you are raising the bid. And he said in marriages we are constantly making bids for each other's attention. And Karen and I were sitting out on our little balcony the other day, some pelicans, serious, we're up at Lake Macquarie, there's pelicans flew over. Oh, there's a couple of pelicans. Now, it's nothing, right? And yet it is. It's a bid for connection. And I can just then say, right? Yeah, it is. A true story. Why they come on, Carol had dodgy eyes. She had to have this cataract operation, true story. And I said, honey, there's two, you see the two pelicans there? And she said, there's two, there's four. It's true. And I said, no, count on it. It's two. No, there's four. I should have asked, are they flying in unison? So she had a cataract operation. Another day I said, no, a couple of pelicans there. How many? She said, oh, shut up. So with this joke now, whenever I was sitting in the boat, how many pelicans? But we got to connect. We've got to connect, right? And we do that in... Karen and I were driving, seriously, Karen and I were driving a couple of weeks back. She said something to me. Serious, I'm in my little world here just driving along. About 5 kilometres later, true story, said, oh, she said something back there. No, you said something about 5 kilometres ago. She said, yeah, I've forgotten what it was now. Oh, okay. I said, sorry, I missed the bit. See, we got to connect, right? And we just ignore each other after a while. Well, why bother? He doesn't respond. Cool? You can do this. We can do this, man. Now we know. See, I'm excited now because when people say you've got to work on your marriage, I know what I can do this stuff. I can get to know each other get to know Carol incredibly well. I can nurture my fondness and admiration. I can turn towards her. I can do this stuff, right? I can do this stuff. It's exciting. And you can too. So John Gottman found this stuff works. It makes sense. So turn towards each other. The bids are powerfully significant, powerfully important that we need to do. Okay, Hollywood has dramatically distorted our notions of romance and what makes passion burn. Real life romance is fueled by the humdrum approach to staying connected. It's kept alive each time you let your spouse know he or she is valued during the grind of everyday life. It grows when you know your spouse is having a bad day at work and you take 60 seconds out of your own work day to leave words of encouragement. It grows when your wife tells you one morning, I had the worst nightmare last night, and you say, I'm in a big hurry, but tell me about it, we can talk further tonight, rather than I don't have time. In all of these instances, husband and wife are making a choice to turn towards each other rather than away. Now, I haven't come across this in any other marriage research stuff, right? But I think it's very, very significant because it makes sense, because we're honouring and respecting each other. Paul said honour and respect, and this is the way we can do it. Couples who turn towards each other remain emotionally connected and stay married. Those who don't eventually lose their way. Partners who characteristically turn toward each other are putting money in the bank. They're building up emotional savings that can serve as a cushion when times get rough, when they're faced with a major life stress or conflict. Because they've stored up all this goodwill, they're better able to make allowances for each other when a conflict arises. They can maintain a positive sense of each other and their marriage even during tough times. So you and I need to recognise we've got to find those little occasions when your wife makes some comment about the shopping or clothes and it sounds like there's just nothing, grab it, respond, turn towards rather than away. It has a profound effect on intimacy. Couples often ignore each other's emotional needs out of mindlessness, not malice. We simply forget. All right? So we're going to try and remember to do that. Okay. A couple more things. The first step in turning towards each other more is simply to be aware of how crucial these mundane moments are, just you were saying, Chris, before, not only to your marriage's stability, but also to its ongoing sense of romance. Now, for many couples, just realising that they shouldn't take their everyday interactions for granted makes an enormous difference in their life. Remind yourself that being helpful to each other will do far more for the strength and passion of your marriage than a 2-week holiday in some exotic country. And I think if we've got one more, okay, no, we don't. John Gottman talks about the key to romance is in fact turning towards each other. Now, man, forgive me, but you and I tend to get a bit mixed up on romance. And we somehow think, where are we going to really romance the wife? And it's nice. We'll go to the Bahamas or, we'll go for a nice weekend at I don't know, Redcliffe or somewhere, or Kalanga. Oh, sorry. The campground. Yeah, but no, seriously. We go somewhere special, yeah. And so you watch couples go out to a restaurant, right? It's going to be a romantic night. And what happens? You see the guy sitting there. He reads through the menu for the 5th time. She's sort of just sitting there, yeah. Or he's on the and he watches the waitress go past. Oh, no, I can't do that. Why? Because they've taken all their hurt and pain to the restaurant. Right? And they somehow think that's going to fix it up. Romance starts whenever you hop out of bed, not when you go to bed. The way we treat each other and speak to each other in the morning and right through the day, and the way we turn to each other during the day is going to have a profound effect on what happens at night. Right? Well, that suggests that romance is only a night thing, but you know what I mean. So, he said turning towards each other is a profound effect on romance. And if you and I hop in the morning and we say, whew, got to do your hair. What, you sleep in that nightie? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. So what's for breakfast? How come it's not ready? Don't forget, don't burn the toast like you did yesterday. Sorry, yeah, but if we start off that kind of negative stuff, we're shot. And if we haven't made any connection during the day, and we come home at night and go, yeah, there's going to be some fireworks tonight. Nah, boys, they're going to be rained on. Count on it, all right? It's right through the day, little stuff all during the day. It's valuable stuff. All right. Number 4, we won't go through all, we're nearly done. You've been very good. You're fabulous people, hanging in all day. Let your partner influence you. Chris, you mentioned this one. I was surprised when this one came out in the research. Generally, I think, Chris, in our Australian culture, we tend to allow each other to influence each other in the major decisions. I think you made a comment about women and...
Yeah, well, from Gottman's research, he basically indicates that the need is greater for men to let the wife influence them. And that's probably because of different brain structure. Just the fact that women join the dots a lot better, and so their insights are often better. But certainly...
And sort of that intuition.
The intuition,
yep.
yeah. But being able to read, and because of the emotional connectivity of women, it's a lot stronger. But... yeah, learning to listen to each other is a really important thing.
Rather than sort of the man being in charge, I'm the head of the house, you just, kind of well, not much all that authoritarian, but not asking for opinions and ideas. Okay. In our long-term study of 130 newlywed couples, we have found that even in the first few months of marriage, men who allow their wives to influence them have happier marriages and are less likely to divorce than men who resist their wives' influence. Statistically speaking, when a man is not willing to share power with his partner, there is an 81% chance that his marriage will self-destruct. So you're right, Chris, it's that sense of, All right? So men, I guess this is particularly addressed to us, let your partner influence you. We need to let our wives know that we value. The study found that the happiest, most stable marriages in the long run were those where the husband treated his wife with respect and did not resist power sharing and decision-making with her. When the couple disagreed, these husbands actively searched for common ground rather than insisting on getting their own way. Okay? So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Accepting influence doesn't mean never expressing negative emotions. Marriages can survive plenty of flashes of anger, complaints, even criticisms. Trying to suppress negative feelings in your spouse's presence wouldn't be good for your marriage or your blood pressure. The problem comes when even mild dissatisfaction on the wife's part is met by a barrage from her husband. Instead of toning it down, it goes beyond it. Studies have shown that marriages where the husband resists sharing power are 4 times more likely to end or drone on unhappily than marriages where the husband does not resist. Okay, so that one's pretty self-explanatory. All right, because we've done those 4, here's just 3 that you want to finish, jot down, and we're done. And I'm just going to speak to these. You can just see we've simply listed them. Solve your solvable problems. Solve your solvable problems. Here's something that might surprise you. John Gottman discovered that over 60% of issues that couples argue about cannot be resolved. Surprise? Over 60% of things that couples argue about cannot be resolved. They are deep personality issues and differences that couples have that they will most probably continue to have right through their marriage. And if you find yourself saying, we were arguing about this last week, we were arguing about this a month ago, right? It might highlight that you are dealing with what he calls gridlock or a perpetual problem. A perpetual problem. And what he said, that couples get smart, they solve their solvable problems. Because if you and I have something that's kind of issues that are ongoing and hanging around all the time, it can get pretty distressing and depressing. If you're running late for work, that is a solvable problem. You kick off earlier, get your lunch ready the night before. If your husband leaves his underwear all over the floor, that's a solvable problem. You just get a hammer and nail them to the floor. Right? Or take them outside and burn them. Right? Put a string line outside and on the front door, the front yard, and just hang them all up there. There's strategies. You can do some wonderful things to cut that out, okay? Sorry, forgive me. Yeah. We raised this issue at a workshop once where we said, how might we solve this problem? The women come up with some quite interesting strategies. And one lady said, just burn them all. And I said, well, you better hide yours in case he's tempted to wear yours because he can't find his. But anyway, yeah. But we can solve solvable problems, right? That's important. What he means by overcome gridlock is recognise that every now and then in marriages there are issues that we just find are difficult to overcome. And what we've got to do is we've got to keep talking about that. We take the pain out of it, we take the criticism and the hurt out of it, and we talk about it without putting each other down. We recognise it's a perpetual problem. We keep plugging away, but we don't get into gridlock over it. We don't keep hurting each other. I'm going to give you an example. This couple were arguing about this horse. She had this horse and she wanted to desperately keep this horse. The husband didn't want to know about the horse. He hated the horse. And they argued and argued and argued about this wretched horse. Everything else was cool, just this horse. And it became just, they kept arguing about it on and on and on. And finally, John Gottman sat down with this couple and he said to this girl, when you were a girl, what's something you really always wanted to do? And her eyes lit up and she sat forward and says, I always wanted to be one of those dressage champions. You know, the horse. Don't you feel, it looks good, but you feel sorry for them, don't you, these horses? Seriously. Let the horse be the horse. Horse walk. That's it. Anyway, so she wanted to be a dressage champion. And she talked about it, she got excited. And he turned to the husband and he said, did you want to be a dressage? No, I want to be a dressage champion. And he said, what can you hear your father saying to you when you're just a young man, teenager? Oh, his eyes lit. And he said, my father always told me, don't let anything get in the way of being financially independent. Buy a house, get your house paid for, get financially established. Don't let anything get in the way. They looked at each other and started laughing. It wasn't the horse. It was what it symbolised. To her, the horse, she hung onto the horse because it was part of that dream of being a dressage champion, which she'd never become. But she hung on because that was a part of her dream. He hated the horse because it was something in the way of getting where he wanted to be, financially independent. They argued about the horse, but the horse wasn't the issue. It's the unfulfilled dream. And can I suggest to you, if you find yourself arguing over something and you keep coming back about something, peel back the onion, peel back the layers and say, what's behind this? There's something else behind it. You're arguing about this. It's most probably only a symbol of something else. One more story. A young youth worker that I knew grew up in a family that was a lot of touch. Just a lot of affection in the family, and he found it very easy to touch. It's who he was. And whenever he talked to somebody, he just touched them on the arm, it was just who he was, and that was his way of connecting. He said, this is the way I let people know I care about them. I said, that's just what he did. His wife grew up in a family that was exceptionally opposite. She grew up in a family where she can hardly remember at all her mum and dad kissing, or you just didn't touch. She knew she was loved, but it wasn't expressed through touch. And they got married. And in fact, before they got married, guess what they argued about? Well, you touched so-and-so at the party. Oh, did I? Oh, so what? But you can't do that. Well, I only just touched on the arm. I didn't touch, I just touched on the arm. You just don't do it. And so it just went on and on. And after they're married, it went on for years. Every time some social function, so he'd say, he used to get angry about it, and what we call passive-aggressive. He'd say, huh. So he'd go to the party, I'm touching nothing, And he's a youth worker, right? This is, how you going? Yeah. No, you're good, yeah. And he's angry, but he's trying to be the youth pastor, but he's angry because he's going to show his wife he's touching nothing, And it was this punishment and stuff. Argued for ages. And finally, someone sat down with them and talked about what was behind this. And for him, he wanted to be a successful youth pastor who wanted to feel loved and treasured and connected. And that's the way he connected in his family. It was just normal for him to feel. He would wrestle with the guys and he'd touch. It was just his way of, he just wanted to be loved and accepted and be successful. What did she want? Security. She wanted to know she was emotionally safe. And every time he touched someone else, especially the girl, it was a message to her that she was just one of many, that she wasn't special, that she wasn't cared for. And finally, when that happened, they were able to make some adjustments and they overcome gridlock. So you and I need to find when it's happening and see if we... Finally, Chris, create shared meaning. How would you describe that? I guess it's a bit like in the family one, traditions.
Yes, I think in marriage, as in the family, just the things that you do regularly, how you remember anniversaries of different kind, just things that become a tradition within your marriage, just something that's special.
It's kind of like we have Easter and Christmas. We need that sort of stuff in our marriages, little celebratory moments. When Chris has got it, Gottman found that couples who were very successful they created shared meaning. They things that they shared together. This is ours. This is us. This is what we do together. This is what we treasure together. This is uniquely us, and we need to create those and make those, and they become special anchors. So that's what successful couples did. All right, number one. What was it? Number one principle: enhance your love. Let's get to know each other incredibly well. Number two: nurture your fondness and admiration. Number three: turn towards each other. Number four: let your partner influence you. Right. Number five: solve your soul problem. You can do this, people. You can do this. You've been a fabulous group of people. You've stayed by. It's 4 o'clock. Thank you for your love and care for me, and thank you to Chris and Marlene and helpers for putting all the material together. Would you thank Chris and Marlene one more time for putting it all together? Thank you. I want to thank your Pastor Joe and Doug Oaklands for doing a lot of work on today. Thank you, Doug. And to all of you people, you've made it very enjoyable for me. I hope it's been helpful. I really have. And there's some sheets here for you to take home. You can lie up in bed for those of you who are married and ask each other some questions, have some fun. And God bless you all. I trust that your marriages and families will be everything they can be. Thank you so much. God bless you.